Greetings everyone. Today we're going to explore factoring quadratics. Specifically in this video, we're going to stick to an a value of 1. If you have an a value that's greater than 1, you'll want to check out that video. Alright, before we begin talking about factoring, let's do a quick review of multiplying because they go hand in hand. In this case, again, do not distribute the squared. You cannot do that because you have a binomial. Instead, remember to think of it as multiplying by itself. And then choose your method of multiplying. If you need a review on this, see the other video on multiplying. You will end up with possibly 4 terms if you sort of take the long route, and then you combine your like terms. So I have a negative 6x, positive 1. So if you need help with that, please see the other video. Now the goal today for factoring is that this is going to become our question, and we want to undo it and break it apart into 2 parentheses. So here's another visual. Jumping back and forth between this idea. We can multiply binomials, that's what we've already been working on. And today we're going to undo that by breaking apart the polynomial into smaller polynomials. I've got some steps if you need them, if you're a step sort of follower, if you need a reference point. So jot these down if needed. Again, this is specific to when a is equal to 1. The first thing that we're going to continue to work on is to factor out a GCF if possible. The point of this is if you can make your polynomial smaller, it'll make your life easier, okay? Now today, because we're dealing with this a equals 1, probably not going to have to worry too much about it, but I want you to be in the habit of thinking about, can I make it smaller? Second, you want to identify the a, the b, and the c in the polynomial, meaning when it's written in standard form, what is the a, b, c value? Next, we're going to specifically look at the constant, the c value, and we're going to talk about its factors. So we're going to go back to, I don't know, things you might remember like factor trees, breaking apart numbers into smaller numbers, things like that. Then from those factors of c, we want to find a pair that adds or subtracts to become the b term. So we're going to look at that list and we're going to say which of those numbers could get me to the b value. And to write our final answer, we want to write those factors in parentheses, right? We're going to stick to sort of 2 binomials today to make it simple. Again, if you need to pause and jot these down, please do so. All right, let's start off with this quadratic. Jot it down. The first step I want to see is there a greatest common factor I can take out? And like I said earlier today, probably not, because we're sticking to this a value of 1. Step 2, identify your ABC. My a is 1 because this is in standard form. My b is 7 and my c is 6. Next, I want to identify the factors of c. Okay, so here's what I like to do. I like to write a little list underneath. So factors of c, 1 times 6, 2 times 3. I could write 3 times 2 and 6 times 1. We'll worry about that a little more in the next lesson. Next, which of those factors can add or subtract to get me to my b value? Well, let's see, my b value is 7. Can a 1 and 6 make 7? Yes. Can a 2 and 3 make 7? No. So 1 and 6 are my factors. So what times itself gets me to x squared? X and x, and we're going to stick to that today. My factors of 6 are 1 and 6. It's a positive 6, so positive, positive. And a positive 6 plus a positive 1 gets me to a positive 7. So we're really going to work on your number sense. playing with the numbers, seeing the patterns, what can add or subtract, thinking ahead, okay? Now, the best part about factoring is you guys can check all your answers and know if you're right. If I re-multiply this out, do a little bit of side work here, whichever method you prefer, box, double distribution, or FOIL, when I combine my like terms, I arrive back at the answer. So I know I'm right. All right, let's take a look at this one. Let's sort of shorten up the process. Because the A value is 1, I won't have a GCF. And I have an x squared, an x, and a constant. So when you have that sort of typical easy quadratic form, you won't have a GCF. Next, identify the factors of 12. I have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Can 1 and 12 make 8? Nope. Can 2 and 6 make 8? Yes. Can 3 and 4 make 8? No. Make sure you go through the whole list of numbers because we're going to get to a point where we have more than one set that works. So let's set it up. How do I get my x squared? X and x. How did I get my 12? 2 and 6. What about my signs? They're all positive? They're all positive. Let's double check. A little bit of side work. Multiply those out, whichever form or method you prefer. Combine your like terms, and you can see that we arrive at the question. So we know we're right. Ooh, example 3. Pause this to write it down, and let's take a look. You'll notice I have negatives. So this is what I like to call the sign game. We're going to play the sign game a little bit. So I'm going to set up my parentheses first. I know I'm going to have x and x. Let's talk about the factors. 1 and 16, 2 and 8, and 4 and 4. Which of those can get me to 6? Not 1 and 16, not 4 and 4, but 2 and 8 work. So let's jot those down. Now here's where I have to play the sign game. In order for two numbers to multiply to get a negative, it either has to be a negative 2 times 8 or a 2 times negative 8, right? Well, they need to add to become a negative 6. If this is negative, there's a rule that means the larger number is negative and the smaller number is positive. But here's the thing, you guys, if you're not sure, you can guess and check. Let's switch the signs around. Let's say you don't know. You're like, I know it's a 2 and an 8, and I know it's opposite signs, but I don't know which one's which. Then write them both out and then check, right? If I do some multiplying, and I do some multiplying on this second idea I have, look at which one. Both of them get me to the negative 16, but only one of them gets me to the negative 6. This one gets me to the negative 6. Oops. So there's lots of like rules you could remember. There's also patterns that you can start to develop and remember. My hope is that you have this general number sense. If I have to add and I result in a negative, my bigger number should be negative. So this is the answer that I'm looking for. All right, let's take a look at another one here. I'm going to set it up first, 2 parentheses. I like to do fill in the blank, so you'll see me do this a lot. Factors of 24. Oh boy. Okay, 1 and 24, 2 and 12. What do we got? 3 and 8. We got 4 and 6. A lot of factors, right? It's going to happen sometimes. Let's see, 1 and 24 can't get me to 11. 2 and 12? Nope, they can't get me to 11 in any way. 3 and 8? Hey, that would work. 4 and 6? Nope, can't get me to 11. So I at least know I have a 3 and an 8. Okay. Now let's play what I call the sign game. They multiply to be positive, but add to be negative. Well, let's see. A positive 3 times a positive 3 times positive 8 gets me to positive 24. But what else gets me to positive 24? A negative times a negative. If I add 3 and 8, I get positive 11. If I add -3 and -8, -11. So in this case, they're both negative. Okay, now I like to call it the sign game because I don't expect that you memorize rules. You are welcome to if you are good at that. Rock on. But in my ideal world, you would sort of have this number sense to figure it out each time. Like look at the numbers and think about them and figure it out. So in this case, I can double check by multiplying. And when I combine my like terms, this confirms that I am correct. So that's my answer. All right, one more, bear with me. This one's different because of the signs. So first step, set up your parentheses because this is 1. Okay, this is just today's lesson why I'm filling in x and x. Factors of 15, 1 and 15, 3 and 5, and that's it. Let's see, 1 and 15 can't get me to 2. Ooh, but 3 and 5 can. Now, I'm multiplying to get negative. That means it could be a -3 or it could be a -5, right? But my middle number's positive, which means I want my bigger number to be positive. So let's check our work by multiplying it out. Again, your check work might look different than mine, depending on your preferred method of factoring. It's up to you, you guys. Your check work does not have to look like mine. I just care that you check to make sure that you're acing it. All right, so first thing, if you need more practice, oh my goodness, you guys, there's so many resources. One of my favorites is actually Kuda Software's website. If you go there, you could look up factoring worksheets and they have answers. So go ahead, if you need just some plain old paper pencil practice, check that out. As always, I'll post different like game links to practice as well. If you need something more, feel free to look on YouTube, Google, so many options. Factoring is a very, very important skill that you'll use in every math class from now till forever. But for right now, specifically, make sure you check Google Classroom to see what are your other tasks at hand. And always, if you get all caught up, make sure to check out PowerSchool. How are you doing? Are you missing anything? And as always, if you need something, just let me know. And until next time, have a good one.